Something is changing in the air above us. Winters are becoming more unpredictable, more violent and harder to forecast. And the cause may not be where most people expect. It begins at the top of the world, in a layer of cold air that is now breaking apart. When people hear the term polar vortex, they often imagine a single icy storm swirling above the Arctic. But the polar vortex is not a storm. It's a massive ring of high-speed winds circling the Arctic region in the stratosphere. Its job is simple: to trap cold air near the North Pole. As long as the vortex remains strong, the cold stays contained. However, in recent years, something unprecedented has been happening. The polar vortex is weakening more often, becoming unstable, wobbling, and in some cases breaking apart entirely. And when it does, that frigid Arctic air escapes and spills southward across North America, Europe, and Asia. What follows are the brutal winter storms many Americans have felt. Temperatures suddenly dropping, blizzards forming in hours, and cities going from mild winter conditions to deep freeze almost overnight. So why is this happening now? Why are winters becoming harsher, even as the planet warms overall? The answer lies in the complex relationship between climate change, Arctic warming, and atmospheric circulation patterns. Let's break down how the polar vortex works. High above the Earth, between 10 and 50 kilometers in altitude, the vortex forms each winter as the Arctic region receives little to no sunlight. Darkness cools the atmosphere. Cold air grows dense. A tight spinning jet forms, circling the Arctic like a wall. This circulation separates the frozen Arctic from the relatively warmer mid-latitudes where most people live. For decades, this system remained relatively stable. Winters had variability, yes, but the Arctic cold generally stayed in the Arctic. Now, however, the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. This phenomenon is called Arctic amplification. Melting sea ice exposes darker ocean water which absorbs more sunlight, leading to more warming. This warming reduces the temperature contrast between the Arctic and lower latitudes. That temperature contrast is what strengthens the polar vortex. So when the contrast weakens, the vortex weakens. When the polar vortex weakens, its once stable ring of winds begins to ripple. Waves of warm air from lower latitudes can punch into the Arctic atmosphere. Meteorologists call this sudden stratospheric warming. This warming can rapidly destabilize the vortex, causing the frigid Arctic air to spill outward like water flowing through cracks in a broken bowl. This is when the US experiences severe winter weather outbreaks. If you remember the extreme cold events, like the 2014 freeze that brought sub-zero temperatures to Chicago, or the 2021 Texas freeze that collapsed the state's power grid, those events were linked to polar vortex disruptions. But here is where the story becomes even more concerning. The polar vortex is not breaking because the planet is getting colder. It's breaking because the planet is getting warmer. Arctic warming is disrupting weather patterns that once functioned like clockwork. Jet streams that were once strong and direct are now weaker, slower, and more meandering. When the jet stream slows, it can lock weather patterns in place longer. That means cold spells last longer. Storms stall instead of passing through. Snow accumulations grow deeper. This is why winter feels more extreme, not simply colder overall, but more chaotic. One week might feel like spring. The next week brings temperatures that shatter records from 100 years ago. This instability is becoming the new winter normal. Now let's look at what this means for different regions of the United States. In the Midwest and Great Lakes region, polar vortex collapses can trigger sudden Arctic blasts. Cities like Minneapolis, Chicago, and Detroit can see temperatures plunge to dangerous levels in hours. Lake-effect snowstorms can intensify dramatically as frigid winds pass over relatively warmer water surfaces, generating enormous, persistent snow bands. In the northeastern United States, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, polar vortex disruptions can turn routine winter storms into nor'easters. These storms can intensify rapidly, creating blizzard conditions that shut down transportation, damage infrastructure, and overwhelm emergency services. In the south, the region least prepared, polar vortex disruptions are catastrophic. States like Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi are not built for prolonged freezing temperatures. Water systems are exposed. Power grids lack winterization. Homes lack insulation for extreme cold. The 2021 Texas freeze stands as a warning. When Arctic air spills far south, the consequences are not just uncomfortable, they are life-threatening. Meanwhile, the western United States faces a different kind of winter effect. As the jet stream grows more unstable, atmospheric rivers become more frequent. These rivers carry enormous amounts of Pacific moisture, dumping heavy snow in the mountains and heavy rain in lower elevations. This can create a paradoxical combination of drought and flood, where snowpack provides water security, yet extreme storms trigger mudslides and flash floods. So is climate change making winter colder? Not exactly. Climate change is making winter more variable and more extreme. The average temperature may still be rising, but the extremes are becoming harsher. It's like stretching a rubber band. The more it stretches, the more violent the snap becomes. Now the important question. What happens next? Climate models suggest that polar vortex disruptions will likely continue and may become more frequent through the 2030s. As long as the Arctic continues to warm faster than the rest of the planet, the structural instability in the vortex will remain. This means local governments must prepare for cold extremes even as they plan for long-term warming. Power grids must be weatherized, not just for heat waves, but for deep freezes. Cities must rethink emergency shelter infrastructure to support vulnerable populations. Home builders and architects must consider winter resilience, not just summer cooling. Communities must recognize that winter danger is no longer limited to northern states. The United States is now living in a climate defined by unpredictability. The real danger is not the cold itself, it is being unprepared for the cold. But preparation is possible. Weather forecasting has improved. Satellite data now provides real-time models of polar vortex stability. Emergency planners can monitor signs of sudden stratospheric warming. Utilities can strengthen grid systems. Households can build winter resilience plans. Understanding the polar vortex is not just a scientific curiosity, it is a survival tool. Because the most dangerous winter storm is the one you don't see coming. As we move forward, the key is awareness. The more people understand how the atmosphere works, the better we can adapt. This is not about fear, it is about clarity. The climate system is changing, the rules of winter are being rewritten, and whether we adapt or ignore the signs will determine how communities endure the winters of the future. If this breakdown helped you understand why winters are becoming more extreme and why the polar vortex matters, make sure to subscribe to Crisis Lens, like this video, and share it so others can stay informed and prepared.